Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Suzanne Gould, and I am NCAI's archival specialist. I'm happy to be here today to present this webinar that will guide you through the policy resolutions process. Now, although most of this webinar is going to be geared towards submissions for the upcoming 82nd Annual Convention, it will also be useful for your engagement in future conventions beyond annual. As we prepared the content of this presentation, we gave thought to the most commonly asked questions from resolution sponsors that we have heard, and the areas in the process that generally cause the most questions and confusion. And those issues and questions, along with other pertinent information, have been compiled to form the basis of the subject matter in this webinar. After today's session, you will have the information and knowledge and be prepared to successfully advocate for your tribal nation through the policy resolutions process. You will come away having learned about the overall purpose of resolutions, in other words, the why behind resolutions, and you will be able to define the essential characteristics of a successful resolution. You'll also learn how to submit a resolution and be made aware of the important upcoming dates and deadlines. And lastly, you'll be able to identify the step-by-step process of just what happens to your resolution once it's received. How is it deliberated on during the convention itself, and the expectation of you as a sponsor throughout that process. We're going to be covering a lot of ground, so let's get started. Quick note about today's webinar. If you have any questions throughout the session, please enter them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. There's a little diagram in the middle. You can see the Q&A. It should appear at the bottom of your screen. And then in order to make the best use of our limited time today, NCAI staff will be compiling the questions and their answers into a frequently asked questions document that we will post to the website just within the next few days. This webinar will also be recorded and posted to the website in case you want to rewatch it to capture information you might have missed, or pass along the link to anyone you know of who couldn't make it today. Before we jump into the content of our session, I'd like you to meet the NCAI Resolutions Committee. While they're not able to be on this webinar today, the individuals on this screen play a key role in the entire process, from determining which resolution should move forward to committees and subcommittees, which are out of order, as well as working with sponsors to modify their submissions to better meet the standards and criteria. The committee co-chairs are Ron Allen and Leslie Wheelock, and our committee members are Leonard Fineday and Amber Schultz Oliver. Keep in mind that throughout the convention week, not just for annual, but for any convention, you will find them in the resolutions office throughout the week if you have any questions or concerns. Let's start with a general definition. What's the role of NCAI policy resolutions? Resolutions are one of the policy mechanisms utilized by NCAI to express the consensus positions of member tribal nations on federal, state, local, and/or tribal legislation, litigation, or policy matters that affect the welfare and rights of American Indian and Alaska Native governments or communities. The official definition in the NCAI Standing Rules of Order, Section 13 is, quote, resolutions must be of a general nature to advocate for the best interests of all American Indians and Alaska Natives. Resolutions that take one side between two conflicting tribes are not in order. It's important to know what are the requirements of a successful policy resolution. NCAI's resolution process guidance contains several key terms whose definition should underlie the drafting of all of your submissions. These terms are essential to keep in mind when preparing a resolution, because if they do not meet these requirements, the resolution will either be returned to you for rewriting or revising, or it might be ruled out of order. So let's review them quickly here, and then in the upcoming slides, I will provide more detail on each of these definitions. The first one is resolutions must be of a general nature. This means that resolutions must be national in scope and that they must advocate for the best interests of all American Indians and Alaska Native people. Secondly, resolutions must be submitted on time. If they are received after the deadline for annual, or if they're submitted at any time for mid-year or the Executive Council winter session, they must be emergency in nature. And I will also provide more information on the upcoming deadlines for annual in an upcoming slide. Third point, resolutions must not be duplicative of prior resolutions. And again, I'll expand on this in a future slide by providing information on how you can search for previous resolutions using our online resolution archive. It's so important to remember that if these conditions are not met, the resolution will be ruled out of order and will not be reviewed or voted upon. Now, let's discuss these definitions in greater detail. General in nature. Resolutions must address broad issues and shared concerns intended to benefit all Alaska Native and American Indian tribes and their citizens. They must not favor one group or another or take sides in intertribal disputes. And while resolutions that are of regional interest or tribally specific may be considered, the sponsor must, in the text, identify the broader implications of the resolution or the collective goals that support all Native communities as a whole. The next term, emergency in nature. You'll hear this a lot, and you will hear it under certain circumstances, and then for specific conferences. And this means that the event that gives rise to the need for the resolution must have occurred after the date that the resolution portal closes and before noon on the second day of the conference. And more information on those dates coming in a bit here. A little bit more about emergency in nature. Emergency in nature means that the resolution has to explain the emergency that resulted in the need for the resolution, and it must be an immediate need explained in the text, such as a piece of pending legislation or rulemaking, an upcoming opportunity for tribal nations, or an occurrence of national impact. The resolution must explain the emergency and call for a responsive action to be detailed in the therefore be it resolved clauses. And both the emergency activity that created the need and the requested action in response to that emergency have to be explained in the text. Let's move on to another important term. You will hear this process ruled out of order, called out of order. And what does that mean? What might have happened with your resolution for it to be ruled out of order? There are a couple of major ways that that can happen. Number one, it's not general in nature, not national in scope, and where applicable, not an emergency. Secondly, the individual member sponsor is not in good standing. More on that to come. And lastly, if the resolution is duplicative of prior resolutions that were adopted by NCAI, and there's no indication that the resolution is intending to update the prior resolution or negate or cancel it. Let's go through some resolution tips and best practices. The title. The title should be short, concise, yet descriptive. I would take an aside here to say that one way to look at the proper length of your title when drafting your resolution is to take a look at former resolutions that were adopted. And I mentioned I will show that system, and it's a helpful guideline to see kind of the length of the title, how it should reflect the contents of the resolution, what it should include. Secondly, what is the ask? The sponsor must state what they would like NCAI to do with the resolution if it is adopted. Third, always consider those prior resolutions And if the resolution that you are preparing relates to a prior resolution, you must make it clear that it is updating the prior resolution or negating or cancel it. And I will provide again more information on this in a subsequent slide. We'll review how to search for those historical adopted resolutions online. And lastly, so important, formatting. Remember your formatting. We provide a template and you must follow the instructions in the template and follow the format. The resolution must be submitted in Microsoft Word format, not PDF, not Google Docs, not WordPerfect. How can you search for a prior resolution? You can visit NCAI's online archive of resolutions at ncai.org/resolutions. And from there, you can search, access, and view all adopted resolutions since 1944. There are approximately 5,000 resolutions in the database that are searchable by subject or keyword or filtered by event or year. Once you access those resolutions, you can view, read, or download them from there. Here's an example of that screen. The yellow arrow on the left-hand side points to the search box where you can input any keyword or subject or tribe or any matter of term that you'd like to put in there and filter your results by, at the bottom, the event, which is any particular convention, mid-year convention 2025, annual convention 2024, and so on, going all the way back to 1944. Or you can also filter by specific year. So if you're aware that there might have been a resolution adopted in the 1990s on a specific subject, you can put the search term in the box and then filter all of the years of the decade of the 1990s and come up with that resolution. I hope that you will find this online search tool useful for you when drafting your resolution, and that it helps you identify previously adopted resolutions which you can use to support and fine-tune your draft. Now let's get into the nuts and bolts of how you can begin to engage with the policy resolutions process. The following slides address the who, the how, and the when of the resolutions process. So let's talk about who is eligible to submit a resolution, and then the expectations of the sponsors throughout the convention. Only NCAI individual Indian members, not tribal nations, in good standing, are authorized to submit a resolution. Good standing means that the individual sponsor membership dues are paid and current, and their tribal nation must also be a current member of NCAI. Both conditions need to be met. As resolutions are submitted, the staff and the resolutions committee verifies your membership and your standing for every single submission that you produce. And it's important to note that upon the membership check, staff will contact sponsors by email or phone who are not individual Indian members in good standing. In some cases, a renewal is necessary, and in other cases, it involves joining for the first time. Sponsors are given until the week before the convention begins to process their membership. However, we request that the membership be updated as soon as possible, but really no later than that first week before convention. Because in the interim, your resolution will be marked out of order because the membership is not in good standing. Another expectation of you as a sponsor is that you must be prepared to represent the resolution throughout the process, as the resolution may be considered, amended, or tabled at various points. This means that the expectation of you is to be in attendance at the convention, be present, and participate in all relevant subcommittee and committee meetings where the resolution is being considered. And this is critically important so that the resolution has someone present to speak to its importance. In the event that you cannot be in attendance, you're always able to delegate someone to speak on your resolution's behalf. This can be somebody that you appoint that is trustworthy to speak to the issue, or somebody who's worked on the resolution with you, or somebody who's present at the convention from your tribal nation. Communication with the staff on site is essential throughout this process. Please let us know if you are unable to attend and who your proxy will be. Now let's talk a little bit about how you can submit a resolution for the annual convention. The resolutions portal typically is made available at least 6 weeks prior to the start of each convention. So resolutions are now being accepted for the 2025 annual convention. The portal was opened up slightly earlier this year to give extra time to accommodate what we anticipate are a large number of resolutions incoming for the upcoming annual convention. We ask that the resolutions be submitted via the portal. Here is the link at the top, but it is also accessible in all of your weekly email broadcasts from NCAI, as well as on the NCAI website at www.ncai.org/resolutions. When you click the link to access the portal, the first step you should take is to locate and download the 2025 Annual Resolutions template. It's also available on that website. The template is your starting point. It is an essential tool in the process and contains the proper formatting, language, and instructions for the title, the whereas clauses, and the be it resolved clauses. And again, remember that all resolutions must be submitted on that template in Word format and using the portal link. Let's review all of the important upcoming dates. This is taking us through the current time all the way through the end of the annual convention. First, the submissions portal. It opened on Monday, September 8th, so the system is up and running. Now, normally the portal and template are made available 6 weeks prior to the start of convention. However, we are making an extra effort to open the system earlier to provide extra time for the development of resolutions. The second date is critically important. This is your initial first resolutions deadline, and that's Monday, October 13th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific. This deadline ensures that NCAI staff and the Resolutions Committee have adequate time to review your submission and to give it the proper and adequate attention it deserves. Resolutions will not be accepted through the portal after that October 13th deadline. The second deadline is always the second day of convention on Tuesday at noon. So in the case of annual, it's Tuesday, November 18th at 12 noon Pacific time. Only emergency in nature resolutions will be accepted between the first deadline of October 13th and the second final deadline of November 18th. And then let's look at some key dates during the convention on site. Resolutions office opens on Monday, November 17th at 8 a.m. and is open every day throughout the week until the final General Assembly. Subcommittee meetings that you will want to attend to deliberate on your resolution and again to be present if you're a sponsor are Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon. Full committee meetings, again, to be present to deliberate on your resolution are Monday and Thursday afternoon. with the resolutions moving to the final General Assembly for adoption on Friday morning. Remember to check your convention agenda for meeting times and room locations for all the subcommittee and full committee meetings throughout the week. I'd also like to cover what happens to your resolution once it is received. Often resolutions are submitted and we receive questions on where is my resolution? What's happening to it? What is the status? And this chart kind of explains where the process goes once it's submitted. So if you look at the lower left, you can see resolutions submitted. After all the resolutions are submitted and the NCAI staff has an opportunity to review all of them, they move to the resolutions committee that reviews them. And they are reviewed to make sure they're in order or out of order. In order would be if the sponsor's in good standing, the resolution is new and not duplicative of a prior resolution, and to make sure that the substance is properly developed. Once that determination is made, a comprehensive report is prepared for the executive committee that reviews the resolutions committee report at the start of the convention. And at that point, the resolutions are sent to the relevant subcommittees who, in the process of meeting, amend the resolution, edit the resolution, and make recommendations on whether the full committee should pass or table the resolution. And then from there, the resolutions are sent to the NCAI committees, which can further amend the resolution and make recommendations that the General Assembly adopt or table the resolution from there. So I hope that's a helpful flow chart to see kind of the process of when we're on site and what happens to your submission throughout the resolutions process. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see this table with all of the parent committees, and there are 6: Economic, Finance and Community Development, Human Resources, International, Land and Natural Resources, Litigation and Governance, and Veterans. And to the right of each of those, they're relevant subcommittees. And at this moment in time, there are 17 subcommittees to which your resolution might be sent. Thank you for joining me today as we learn more about the NCAI policy resolutions process. I've put my email address on the slide here. Please consider me and the Resolutions Committee co-chairs and members as a resource to you and send me any questions or concerns you may have. I look forward to working with you all at Annual and beyond. Thank you for your participation today.